Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So the Washington football team comes up short yet again, 31-17 in Week 4 versus the Baltimore Ravens at home. Washington drops to 1-3 on the season. Ravens move on and improve to 3-1. A lot of different reasons as to why Washington had the biggest margin of a loss in week number 4. No other team lost by more than 11. Most games were one-score games. Washington lost by 2 full touchdowns. So a lot of work to be done here in Washington. It felt like a game that we were in, but we never had a chance to win. And that was the way I left this game feeling. That was my takeaway. Hey, it could have been worse. And again, I hate to do the whole, set the bar low routine, but that's how we've been preconditioned to think with this organization is, hey, just set the bar low. And if we hit it, great. If we don't, we set it pretty low. We're not surprised. So this was a game that I thought we needed all hands on deck to have a chance to win. And going into this game without Steven Sims, Terry McLaurin being questionable, no Chase Young, no Matt Ioannidis, and I don't need to keep repeating no Matt Ioannidis because he's done for the year. It's not like Chase Young where he's week to week and at some point he'll be back. There's no Matt Ioannidis for the rest of the season, so we just have to come to grips with the fact that our best interior pass rusher isn't coming back. And I read a comment yesterday from the overtime video that said, you got to stop talking about this defense like they're good. They gave up 31 points. Guys were open and big plays were made, and this is becoming a weekly occurrence. And while on one hand, in one account, you're correct, I've been critical of this defense. I'm not one of those people that feel like this defense is elite and that the offense is to blame for everything. I've been saying, I said this after the Cleveland game last week, because you turn the football over doesn't mean you have to then give up a touchdown because of it. Like, the two don't go together. Just because there's a turnover, again, it's one thing if that turnover is returned down inside your 10-yard line and they start 1st and goal from the 7. It's hard to keep a team out of the end zone 1st and goal from the 7. Okay? These are turnovers that are taking place at the 30, at the 40, close to midfield. There's still a lot of green grass to defend, and we're simply just not defending it well. So I've been critical of this defense and that they haven't done enough. If you want to be considered one of the better units in the league, if you want to be the strength of this team, then when the team needs you the most, you have to step up. I talked about that last week. It reared its ugly head again this week. We had a turnover early in the game, a bad turnover by J.D. McKissick. He's stripped of the football, literally. All right, Marlon Humphrey jumps on his back and rips the football out. And the Ravens take over 1st and 10 from about the Washington 37 or something along those lines. You got 37 yards of grass to defend. Defend it. Don't let them get into the end zone. Instead, they get into the end zone at 7-0. Okay, Washington's offense puts together a drive. They don't cap it off with a touchdown, okay? But they have to settle for a field goal. Dustin Hopkins misses from 54 yards out. The Ravens take over with great field position, but they're not in Washington Washington territory. They're in Baltimore Ravens territory. They still got a considerable amount of ways to go. Now, it's great field position. It's a great start to the drive, but it's still over 60 yards of grass to defend. And yet you give up a 50-yard Lamar Jackson run for a touchdown. Again, I'm not going to give the defense a pass because the offense hasn't been good to start this season off. They have to be better. They have to stop giving up big plays. They didn't give up big plays through the air necessarily, even though you could consider and classify the second touchdown from, really both of his touchdowns were big plays. They were chunk plays, but the second one he was running wide open was Mark Andrews through the secondary to start the second half. Whereas the first one, it was good coverage by the secondary for about 4 seconds, and nobody got to Lamar Jackson. He was able to roll out and hit Mark Andrews. That was a great play by Lamar Jackson. It's what we're lacking offensively. A playmaker at the quarterback position, a guy that's willing to extend a play and make something happen and not be a deer in headlights when things break down and then run to your left and run into a sack. So we just need more plays being made. But the defense, they're just as much to blame for the 1-3 start as the offense is. And anybody that thinks contrary to that is wrong, and they simply aren't paying attention. Because, again, I watched games all this weekend of teams having turnovers and forcing that team to kick a field goal, or that team not getting any points out of it at all, depending on the circumstances. You don't have to give up points after a turnover, even if it's in your territory, especially if it's on the cusp of field goal range. You're allowed to get a 3-and-out stop after a turnover and force that team to make a decision like go for it on 4th down, like the Ravens essentially did with the fake punt. And that's another situation where you got a chance to make a play. Our special teams has fumbled. They've given us bad field position, and they've allowed teams to convert fake punts and things of that nature this year. Our special teams hasn't been good this year. It was great last season. It was a strength last season at times. It's been a detriment this year. And so, yeah, the offense hasn't been good, and it hasn't carried its weight. We all acknowledge that. That's a fact. But you know what else hasn't happened? The defense hasn't stepped up, and special teams hasn't made things any easier for the offense or the defense. So, honestly, we're not winning at any phase of football right now. We're being outplayed offensively, defensively, and on special teams. And while all of that is true, we're 1-3, and we're literally a half game out of first place. So, for all that has gone wrong, and I get it, that's not a badge of honor that you're a half game out of first place at 1-3. It just means you're in a terrible division. We acknowledge that as well, and we're not running from it. These are our family members. We're not proud of that, okay? As a matter of fact, I'm ashamed of my family right now. I'm ashamed of the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants. I'm ashamed that everyone's calling us the NFC least again. I'm ashamed at the fact that this division is the worst in football, and it's not even close. However, that doesn't stop me from wanting to win what is the worst division in football. I've read a comment yesterday that says, I don't want to win the division. I don't want to win what's the worst division in football just to go to the playoffs and lose a game. Why the hell not? Why wouldn't you want to get this team experience in the postseason so they understand what it takes to get there? It doesn't matter if you're 10-6, you're 11-5, or you're 7-8-1, as Ron Rivera had a team in Carolina that won the division and ultimately won a playoff game. Once you get into the show, all bets are off. They shut their door, and you get an opportunity at home to win a playoff game. I want to go. If you win the division, you get a home playoff game, you get a chance to taste what it's like to play postseason football. Don't tell me that every single guy in that locker room can't use the experience of a postseason game, what it's like to play winner takes all type of stakes football. I'd love to be in that situation. I'd love for these guys to get that experience. I talked about that with my favorite NBA team, the Memphis Grizzlies. I wanted them to be in the postseason, even if that meant getting there just meant we were going to get swept. I wanted those guys to know what it felt like to be in a playoff environment. It's totally different than a regular season game. And I wanted them to get that experience. I'm glad they got the one game that they got, that play-in game. But I wanted them to experience a series, making adjustments, all of those things. Same thing with these guys. I'm not turning down an opportunity to get to the postseason. You know, now, would I prefer Dwayne be the quarterback of that team? Yes, absolutely. It would mean a lot less if the quarterback of the team was Alex Smith, for instance. Okay, he's been to the playoffs many a times. It's not going to mean as much. Now, if Kyle Allen were to lead us there and he shows us a little something, you know, maybe I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. But I think I know who he is as a football player already. There are limitations to Kyle Allen's game. I'm not looking for him to be the future of this franchise. If it's not Dwayne and it happens to be Kyle, I'll still be excited because there's still 52 other guys in that locker room, many of which haven't tasted postseason success or any success for that matter at this level. You know, and that goes to the Jonathan Allens and the Deron Payne. All they know is losing here. That's all they know. They know nothing of winning in this organization. They haven't tasted it. The last time we won anything was 2015. None of those guys, nobody except for Kerrigan, was on that team in 2015, and Morgan Moses. That is it. Nobody else knows what it feels like to win with this organization. Maybe Sheriff might have been there for that. I think Sheriff might have been there for that. Might have been his first season. It might have been 16, might have been his first year in the league. I'm trying to think. Sheriff is now in the 5th year. He's in the 6th year of his career. So, yeah, he would have been there for that. Because McLuhan, I don't know if McLuhan made that pick or not. Anyway, I digress. Bottom line is we don't have many guys that know what it's like to play in postseason football on this football team. All of the young guys that have been here 3 or 4 years, all they know is losing. All they know is miserable losing. And they're seeing more of it again this year, but there's a different tenor to it. There's a different sheriff in charge, and this thing is going in a different direction. I told you guys in the offseason, and it was a great tweet from JP Finley, and I retweeted it. And it pretty much said, and I'm paraphrasing, that everyone was all in on the rebuild until it became time to actually go through the rebuild. And it's amazing how so many of you that I talked to this offseason that I said, and there are some of you that are continuing with the plan as it was laid out, that are still staying the course. Hey, we knew what we signed up for. We knew this was going to be a long season. I want to see Dwayne play. I want to see these young guys. I want to see them improve. I want them to get experience. There are a lot of you out there that are staying the course, all right? But there are a lot more of you that were saying, hey, we know this isn't going to be a great season. We know what we're in for. I just want to see Dwayne. I hope he proves everyone wrong. And now that we've gotten into the season, your tenor has totally changed, and nothing's good enough. This thing needs to blow up. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to go get this player. We need to get that player. Now, some of you from the jump thought this was a 10-win team, and I don't know why in the hell you thought that to be the case. Some of you started drinking that Kool-Aid. You got drunk in the offseason, and I tried to talk some of you off the ledge. I asked you to put the cups down. You refused to do so, and now you're beyond the point of return. I can't help you. So those people, I just let you wallow in your self-pity and your misery by yourself because I can't help you. Because you thought this was something that it wasn't. It never was an 11 or a 10-win team. This was never that. And it wasn't going to be that, no matter who you put at the quarterback position. You know, and you sit here, you talk about, well, if we had this guy or we had that guy. Well, we still fumbling on special teams. We still giving it up on defense. We're still allowing teams to score touchdowns in the red zone. You're still missing field goals. All of these things are still taking place. It's not just one facet of the game. It's not just the offense. It's not just Dwayne. It's the defense. It's the special teams units. We haven't played, and I said this, and I've been saying this all year, we haven't played a 60-minute game yet. Not one. We really, to be brutally honest with you, we haven't played 30 minutes of quality football. A half. A whole entire half. We've only played stellar quarters. And the best quarter for us has been the third quarter. Well, that changed on Sunday because the Ravens and us were the only two teams to have not given up a third quarter touchdown. After Sunday's game, there's only one team that can lay claim to that in the league now, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. Because they scored on us to start the third quarter, put that to rest. We had an opportunity, and we failed to do so. So the Ravens are the only team that hasn't surrendered a point in the third quarter this season now. They're by themselves. But we've dominated the third quarter this season. It's been the one quarter that we've played confident and competent football in just about every game this season. The problem is we haven't played great fourth quarters. We played one good fourth quarter. That was in week 1. That's why we won the game. Outside of that, fourth quarters have been mixed at best. We were so-so against Arizona, but it got us back into the game tentatively. We weren't good at all. We were horrendous against Cleveland in the fourth quarter, got our doors blown off in that game. We went into the fourth quarter leading in that game, if you recall, 20-17. Before being outscored 17-0 in that final frame and losing 34-20. So we were horrible in the fourth quarter versus the Browns last week. And then this week, we were kind of meh in the fourth quarter. The Ravens were kind of on cruise control, and we were looking to just be keep this thing respectable, sort of, kind of. At the end of the day, we weren't good enough. We weren't good enough in this game, and we haven't been good enough this season. We haven't been good enough on either side of the ball. And we haven't been good at special teams either. You know, we need to be better as a team. And I watched the Giants play the Rams, and we'll talk about the Rams on Wednesday when we start to turn the page and start turning our attention to our next opponent. But if we think we're the best defense in the division, the Giants have something to say about that, because I felt all along this season that the Giants are abysmal offensively. They may be the worst offense in football. Them and the Jets are fighting for worst offense, and at least the Jets have one guy that they can rely on at the receiver position in Jamison Crowder. The Giants don't even have that. They're anemic offensively, are the Giants. But their defense has kept them in ball games, which is more than we can say. You know, we keep talking about this defense, but, you know, without Chase Young, and we're a different defense with Chase Young in the lineup. I feel that way. I really do. You know, Chase Young, remember, he didn't play essentially all of the Browns game, and he didn't play any of this game. They hung on for as long as they could against the Browns in week 3, but no Chase Young made a difference in that game. I really feel that way. No Chase Young in this game made a massive difference. He's a difference maker in our defense, okay? We weren't that bad against Arizona, and we were really good at times versus Philadelphia. You add Chase Young back into the mix. Not having Ioannidis is going to hurt, but if you give me Chase Young, I feel like I got a shot defensively. He changes everything. There's a reason why I was so bullish about this defense and leading the league in sacks and things of that nature. It wasn't because I thought that this defense was going to be that much better coached by Jack Del Rio that I was willing to take that leap of faith. No, it was because I was banking on Chase Young being a havoc-wreaking, game-changing defender, something that we haven't had in Washington probably since LeVar Arrington and Sean Taylor. That's what I was banking on. He showed us that in the first 2 weeks of the season, and then he got hurt in week 3. So you add him back to the mix, and you got a shot defensively. No Chase Young, and you're back to being essentially the defense you were last year, minus the bad coaching. That's it. But you're the same defense, essentially. So it's a massive difference with Chase Young in the lineup. He's not playing right now, but I said all of that to say this. If you really want to be considered the strength of this team and you want to be the best defense in this division at least, I need you to put up a performance similar to the one the Giants put up against the Rams. They gave us the blueprint last week. They showed us what you have to do to contain that offense and keep the ball game close to give yourself a chance. They had a realistic shot, a legitimate chance of winning that game, and they simply couldn't get it done because their offense is anemic. Our offense is better than theirs. We can't say that about many teams in the league. Our offense is better than the Giants' offense. Now we have to prove that our defense is better than theirs, or at least on par. So this is going to be an interesting week. Ron Rivera was somewhat non-committal to Dwayne after the game yesterday. If you listen to his presser, he said that he wants Dwayne to start week 5, but we'll see how the week goes. So he, in so many words, right now Dwayne's the starter, but that's not 100% slam dunk lock that he's going to be under center to start the game versus the Rams in week 5. I still contend that he will. But Ron, I told you this on Friday, and I told you it was a bombshell that went off on Friday when Ron stepped up to the podium after really not having spoken the entire week because he was dealing with treatment and wasn't feeling well. He stepped up to the podium and essentially said, hey, look, this division stinks in so many words. I've been through this process before of being in a stinking ass division because I won one at 7-8-1 before. And I won a playoff game that year. They beat the Cardinals. I remember that very vividly. I was one of those people, oh my God, why are the Cardinals not at home? Why are they even playing against the Panthers? They shouldn't be allowed in. If at worst, they should be on the road. They got a losing record. And they won the damn football game. So he knows what it's like to be in a stinking ass division and navigate your way through that and find a way to come out on top and win it. And he knows that a change at the quarterback position may be what sparks this team if they don't get better play out of Dwayne Haskins. And so I told you that leash got a lot shorter when Dallas decided they weren't going to be a good team, when Philadelphia decided they weren't going to be a good team. Had those teams been running away and it was a 2-team race and you could already identify that we're going to stink and those teams aren't, we're not having this Dwayne discussion. It'd be Dwayne's show all season long for all 16, no questions asked. But because this division stinks, because we were literally 5-6 points away from being in first place yet again for the 4th straight week, despite not having won since week 1, he realizes that there's an opportunity here to go to the postseason. And in this league, you're not guaranteed anything. So if you get an opportunity to go to the postseason, you take advantage of it. And if that means going to Alex Smith or Kyle Allen, he's going to do it. I don't agree with that. I don't. But I'm telling you how he's rationalizing things, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Now, if the Cowboys were 3-1 right now and the Eagles were 3-1 right now, I would have a massive problem with that. But they're not. The Eagles are 1-2-1 and the Cowboys are 1-3. So as it stands, we're right there in the mix. And if you get better play from your quarterback and you get better play from your defense and this thing starts to come together, you could have a chance to make a run at the postseason this year. So I understand his logic. I don't necessarily love it, but I understand it. And Dwayne's performance against the Ravens, it was solid. He executed the plays that they called. There weren't many misses in this game, egregious misses where you're like, oh my God, here we go again. There was the one to the running back out of the backfield. You're like, come on, Dwayne, you can't overshoot the running back that poorly. But there weren't a ton of misses, egregious misses like we've seen the past couple of weeks where you're like, come on, dude. You know, he hit the 4th and 1 to Terry. He hit the deep ball to Terry. Most of his completions were slants and screens. I understand that, but he hit those. You know, some of this was a lot of this wasn't his doing. And, you know, I've been talking to my man, Derek B., and he's been talking about the run game. It's hard to run when you're down double digits early in ball games every week. It's hard to rush the football when you look up at the scoreboard and you're already trailing 17-0 or 14-0. It's hard to stick with the run then. And really, the short passing game has been an extension of the run game anyway. So I'm not one to subscribe to, oh, we're not running the football effectively. We're getting some good hits in the run game. We really are. And the average was totally destroyed by week 1. Peyton Barber had 17 carries for 29 yards in week 1. That alone is hard to overcome when you already don't. We haven't had one guy have 20 carries in any given game this season. Not a one. So we're not running the football a ton to begin with. So the average isn't going to be super high because there are times where we're just looking for a yard or two. We're down inside the 5 and you're trying to get in the end zone. These are rushes that take away from your average because you're just looking to get a yard or two. And if you fail at that, you got to do it again, which is going to pull your average down even more. So we had a couple of good hits in the run game. Part of the reason we were so impressed with Antonio Gibson is because he had some good hits in the run game. Now, there's some bad hits. There were a couple of losses, 3 and 4 yard losses. Those happen too. But at the end of the day, I think we've been running the football. To me, we've had a much better rushing attack this year than we've had the last 3 or 4 years under Jay Gruden and Bill Callahan and company. That run game was atrocious. We didn't stand a chance. At least we're getting some good hits in this run game. It's not great. But again, and I think that's the way I've described everything this season. It's not great, but it's not terrible. We're somewhere in between. So the offense, it's not the offensive line. It's not terrible. It's just not great. The offense as a whole, you could argue it's almost terrible. It's not quite there, but it's close. I've seen terrible this year. We're not quite there, but we're not that far away either. The defense, it's not great. It's not terrible. It's somewhere in between. Special teams, it's not great. Lord knows it's not great. It's not terrible either. I've seen many more bad performances from teams where their kicker is missing 3 and 4 kicks in a game. You saw the Titans week 1. At the end of the day, we are where we are because this is who we are as a team. For those of you that were expecting something else, I would apologize, but there's no reason to, because you knew what was coming. You should have known. We tried to tell you, all the fans that told you, I don't know what you're thinking this is, but this is a 6-10, 7-9 ball club. Maybe 5-11. I don't know what you think this is, but here's what the reality of the situation is. And those that wanted to run through that stop sign or run through that red light, you're getting what you deserve because you weren't listening when you were being told what this season was before it started. So, Justin Herbert's tearing it up in Los Angeles, and I know you want to compare Dwayne to him, and you look around the league and young quarterbacks are tearing it up, and Joe Burrow is lighting it up. That's great. Those guys have a different skill set. Those are different quarterbacks. They are not one and the same. No two guys are alike. Every single player in the NFL is like DNA. It's all unique. One guy comes in, gets it day one, hits the ground running, never looks back. Another guy takes 3 years to have the light bulb come on. And I always use Josh Allen as my most recent and great comparison to Dwayne is Josh Allen. You know, if you give up on a guy too soon, you'll never know if there's real talent there that you can take advantage of. You got to sometimes let guys mature. And it's a shame that this season has turned out the way that it has with the division on one hand, because of the division, it's going to force Rivera to make some hasty decisions that I don't think he would have made otherwise, that I'm not necessarily totally on board with. But at the same time, I like to win. And if you tell me I got a chance to win the division, all hands on deck. And if that means you got to make a switch at the quarterback position, I get it. I understand. At the same time, I want Dwayne to play. I just want to see him for 16 games. Some of you have already made up your mind. That's fine. And guess what? You're free to change your mind if he comes back and wows you at some point. You're free to do that too. And I don't blame you for thinking he's not it. I'm not mad at you for that. He hasn't shown enough to convince anybody that he's it, that he should be the guy and he's the real deal. So if you feel like he's not, I totally understand that. What I don't want to do, what I don't subscribe to, oh, let's tank for this guy or let's lose and get this guy. I don't want to do that. We did that last year. We got the guy we needed to get. If we stink enough to the point where we are in a position to get one of those guys, okay, fine. I understand that. We did that last year. I was on board with that last year because there was nothing to be gained from last year. Not a single thing other than Chase Young. That was one of my worst seasons as a fan last year. And we've hit rock bottom a million times. Trust me, I've been through them all. But last year, there was nothing to be gained from that season. We were starting Case Keenum at quarterback. There was nothing good about last season until Dwayne got in. At least this year, you got a defense that you think can grow together. You got a young quarterback that you want to figure out is the guy or not. There is purpose to this season. There was no purpose to last season other than getting Chase Young. And I wasn't on board with that until late in the season when I realized, look, we stink and we don't need to start winning games and end up with the 7th pick in the draft. That would be really foolish. This can't go in vain. We got a chance to be better. We're not as bad as we were last year. Some of you are like 1-15. Yep, 1-15. We're not going to be 1-15. You know, I had a commenter yesterday on the Overtime show, super chat a couple of times and say, hey, we're going to be picking 3rd to 5th, somewhere in there. No, we're not. You haven't watched the rest of the league. If you think that at the end of the season, this team is going to be picking somewhere from 3 to 5, you haven't been watching the rest of the league. The Texans just fired their coach today. Okay? They're going down. They've got a tough schedule. Okay? The Giants stink offensively. They're not going to win very many games. The Jets might be worse. They're not going to win very many games. I don't know how good Jacksonville is. They score points, but they're not winning ball games. There are a bunch of teams in the league that could have their seasons go south and with an injury or two, like Detroit, for instance. They stink too. We got them on the schedule. There's still teams without a win to their name. And at some point, guys start to check out mentally. When you're 0-6, 1-7, guys start to check out mentally when they know this coach that I'm playing for isn't going to be around next year. If you think for 1 second that we're not going to win 4 or 5 games minimum, which gets you out of the top 5, you win 4 games, you're drafting no worse than 5 or 6. You win 5 games, that puts you in the 7 to 10 neighborhood. You win 6 games, you're out of the top 10. I still think this is a 6-win ball club. I do. I know you think that sounds crazy right now. We play in the worst division in football. If you can't understand what that means, let me explain that to you. That means at worst, you're going to win 3 games in this division because it's that bad. You've already won 1. You're going to win at least 2 more, probably more likely than not 3 more in this division, which puts you at 4 wins. You've got Carolina, you've got Cincinnati, and Detroit all on the schedule. Now, those teams might be capable of beating you. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to say that. All of those teams are fully capable of beating you. Carolina has won 2 straight games, including dismantling a team that dismantled us 2 weeks ago in Arizona. But we don't know what Carolina's going to look like by the time we get to them in like week 14. They could be a totally different team. Same with Cincinnati, same with Detroit, but those are winnable football games. Period. End of discussion. So at the end of the day, I said all of that to say this. Hell, the game this weekend is a winnable football game against the Rams. Shit. After watching what the Giants did, I'm like, why the hell we can't do that? We're not going to be picking in the top 5. Now, top 10 isn't out of the realm of possibility. It's not. But with the way this season is going, I can tell you this much. Ron Rivera isn't going to let this thing get out of hand to where we're 2-14, 3-13 like we were last year. And that's the thing that I can't wrap my brain around. We were awful. One of the worst Washington football teams I've ever seen. And I've seen some bad teams over the years. No talent, nothing. We were terrible last year. We were all out of sorts. We fought towards the end when Callahan took over. We started to fight a little bit more, but we were horrible last year. We were a joke. That was a joke of a team. And we won 3 games. This is not even close to what we resembled last year. We're way better than we were last year. And you think we're going to duplicate that? That just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. We went 0-6 in the division. We didn't win a division game last season. Think about that for a second. We didn't win a single game in what was the worst division in football last year. We didn't win a single game in a division last year. And you think this is the same thing? I don't get that. So I said all of that to say this. For as bad as this team has been at times, we're not anywhere near as bad as we were last year. We're going to continue to compete. And we're going to win some games that we probably have no business winning. We're going to win some games in this division. When it's all said and done, we're going to be in the mix in this division. I know that's not saying much. This division stinks. I understand it. I'm totally aware. But we're going to be in this thing. The Ravens were better than us. They were supposed to beat us, and they did what they were supposed to do. We'll see what happens next week and the week after that. There's some winnable games coming up. And I really think we're going to find out if Dwayne Haskins is going to get the opportunity to continue to play and start for this team in the next couple of weeks. These are big games. If the Giants would have gotten blown out, we would have went into this game on Sunday against the Rams feeling the same way we were going into this game. Oh, it's the Rams. They're a high-powered offense. They're explosive. They're dynamic. They're supposed to beat us. After the Giants pretty much reduced that offense to next to nothing and had that score 10-9 midway through the fourth quarter, now this coaching staff is licking their chops and saying we should be able to do something similar to them. And if we can't, and if Dwayne doesn't play well enough, you may see changes being made. And I don't want to see those changes made. So they need to go out and they need to play better than they did. We've beat this Rams team. We've beaten Sean McVay before. That was year one, Sean. We didn't know what the Rams were going to be, but it's not an impossible feat. So I digress. This team is going to be in the mix this season, and we're going to find out a lot about this team over the next 3 weeks, I believe, because there are some winnable games. And I think this staff is really going to make a decision ultimately on Dwayne Haskins over the next few weeks and whether he's the guy that gives them the best chance to try to win this division or not this season. So hopefully, collectively as a group, it starts with Dwayne and the offense, but hopefully the defense plays better. Hopefully special teams plays better. Hopefully everybody chips in, does their part, and gives this team a chance to win, and we don't always just dump all of the blame on Dwayne and the offense. So let's move on to in other news, and this will be brief because Rivera spoke today, but a lot of the questions were targeted at his health. So you didn't get a lot of juicy nuggets out of what he had to say today. Really, the bulk of what was said was him talking about Scott Turner, his offensive coordinator. Said, look, I was able to see what Scott was able to do as a coordinator, calling plays the last 4 games of the season last year in Carolina. I was impressed with that. It was just what gave him an opportunity here. And I think he's done a really good job. He talked about all of the screens. David Aldridge asked Ron at the very end of his presser on Monday, what was good with all those screens. We saw a lot of underneath passes, screens, slants, things of that nature. And he pretty much said, look, that was the game plan. We knew the Ravens were going to try to come after Dwayne, and we wanted him to get the ball out of his hands and into the hands of his playmakers. And he's like, yeah, look, a bunch of these joints popped for 5 or more yards, which they did. I told you it was successful. There's a reason. I've seen guys do what Dwayne did on Sunday and end up with 137 yards passing, okay? I've seen that happen before, where you want to throw a bunch of screens and slants and you get no run after catch. You're doing nothing. That's not what was happening. Dwayne got to 300 because these screens and slants were going for 15 and 11 and 7 and 9 and 21 and 8 and 4 and 6. Like, there was a consistent gain from these screens and slants. So that's why they kept running them, and they were trying to catch the Ravens coming on a blitz. They did one time on a 3rd down, caught them in a blitz, and that's the one that popped with running back Antonio Gibson. They caught him in a blitz look, and they hit the perfect play, caught the wide receiver screen, and he popped it for a big gain on them. And that's what they were looking to do all game. And Rivera said, once the Ravens got on top, they were looking to deliver the death blow, essentially. And they were going to come after Dwayne and see if they couldn't force a mistake that helped them put this game away. And that's why we just wanted to get the football out of his hands and into the hands of playmakers. He said Dwayne did some good things. There's some things we'd like him to do better situationally. Obviously the 4th down, he talked about that yesterday, that was a test for Dwayne. And that 4th down, that he needed to, get that ball into the end zone. On the 2nd and goal from the 18, that sack, you can't take it. You can't take it, or if it was 2nd and goal from the 15 because we had a false start penalty on Morgan Moses, or it was really on Morgan Moses. They called it on Chase Roulier, whatever the case may be. You can't take that sack on 2nd and goal from the 15. It was an 18-yard loss. Can't take it. Can't have it. And he pretty much said, look, Dwayne can't do that. So, he said it was some good things, it was some bad things done, but it was a lot of good things done from Dwayne, and I think he's going to be the starter this week. That's what I gathered from what he said on Monday, is that I think Dwayne's going to start against the Rams. He's going to have an opportunity against the Rams. I'm looking forward to it. And I think this is a week that, if they can find a way to block Aaron Donald, some good things can get done in week number 5. But we've got plenty of time to discuss that at some point this week. This episode ran a little bit longer, but I got in my bag a bit with the lead story and kind of went off on a tangent. I apologize for that. I can do that from time to time. But in any event, we got Monday Night Football to get to, 2 games tonight. So I'm going to let you guys get to that and glide to the side. I thank you guys for joining me on the program tonight. As always, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We'll reconvene, talk about this football team at greater lengths tomorrow. I'll read some of your comments. We'll do social media maneuvers tomorrow, and I'll read a couple of your comments and discuss those on the show tomorrow. So comment at the bottom of this video and other videos, and I'll potentially read those on the air if they're pertinent and I think they are interesting topics of discussion. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, on the Washington Football Nightly program. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30.